And we're continuing with the 14th chapter of the Pearl of the Soul of the World, which is called Flood. And the flood has begun because Ariel gave the pearl to Orion-Kor, and Orion-Kor could not handle it, and it destroyed her and her palace, which was made of winter rock, otherwise known as ice. And as the palace falls, Ariel falls with it. Winter rock was falling, but it was no longer made of stone. All Orion-Kor's enchantments must have unraveled at her death. Ariel thought almost calmly as she fell. Water thundered all around her. She could not see, could not breathe, heard only the waters roaring. The pearl stuff in her blood told her a little of what was happening around her. She wondered when she would reach the hard end of her fall and die, but no end came. The rushing and buffeting went on and on. After an eternity, she realized that though she was falling still, she was no longer plunging straight downward. The palace has collapsed into the lake. The knowledge came to her with eerie clarity. You are being borne along beneath the surface now. She had no air left in her lungs. The cage of her ribs ached, burning, bursting. Just a while longer, she told herself. Hold out a little longer. Though there hardly seemed any point, she could not swim. Deep below the surface of the mirror, water all around, she was keenly aware that as soon as she opened her mouth and drew breath, she would perish. Perhaps she would faint first and know nothing of dying. Drowning was not such a terrible end after all, she told herself. She'd always feared it, ever since slipping into a cave pool as a child and being pulled, sick and sputtering, onto the banks by her mistress, Eowyn. But there was no bank here, and no companion to reach her, or to rescue her. Her head pounded with the lack of air. Presently she would stop fighting, open her mouth, and breathe deep of the plummeting torrent. Then she would be dead. At least the White Witch is dead too, she thought drowsily. And the world is free of her. The pearl stuff in her blood gave her the certain knowledge of it, but could bring her no comfort. She felt only a crushing sense of failure. She had not fulfilled Ravenna's charge, had not succeeded in converting Orion-Kor to good. The world would know a brief respite now, but without Ravenna's sorcery, could it ever heal? The pearl was broken, its contents scattered, lost. Still, she clung to life, continued to resist the flood. Her own tenacity surprised her. Stop fighting, she told herself, preparing to die. You failed. Someone caught her by the hair, pulled her close across the current. The tremendous buffeting all around them had lessened now. It had become a fierce undertow, no longer any downward motion to it. Her companion guided her face to his, put his mouth to hers, and gave her breath. Ariel clutched at his shirt and clung there, drinking in the sweet and magnificent air. Her head cleared, and suddenly she was fighting again, struggling for breath. The other did not let her break away, did not let her breathe in the white waters of the mirror, much as she wanted to. Air! She needed air. Darkness was everywhere. The icy touch of the witch's fingers had banished her sight. Her eyes felt useless, frozen like orbs of winter rock. She could not see who it was that held her, but she felt the strength of his arms around her, his legs stroking for the surface. She was being borne upward against the current's toe by someone who swam like a fish, someone who had been raised by a Lorelei, someone who had swum the mirror every day of his life for 10 long years. Irelath.